Hello there, and welcome to the Alberta Update, a first-hand look at what's happening in your province. I am your host, Bruce McAllister. Thank you for being with us today. So much ahead on this program. We will talk with Ministers Matt Jones, with Dale Nally, and with the Justice Minister Mickey Amery. So much going on with your government. But first, as we always try to, when she is available, we say hello to the Premier to kick things off. Good day, Premier.
Well, hi, Bruce.
Well, what a busy week. A couple of bills I want to chat about. There's so much going on. I'd like to start with Bill 9. You always bring such good clarity to what is an emotional discussion. The Protecting Alberta's Children Statutes Amendment Act. Tell us why it was important for your government to do this.
We took a long time consulting with parents, consulting with the education community, and consulting with medical professionals, looking at international evidence. And we in 2024 passed a law saying that children would not be able to be on puberty blockers as minors under the age of 16 or get surgery for gender transition under the age of 18. The parents had to be informed if their child wanted to change their pronoun at school, and also consent for it if they were a minor, and that we wanted to protect women and girls in sports so that they compete against each other instead of athletes that were born male. And the court ended up passing an injunction on one of those bills. And we thought, this is too important to make sure that we preserve the rights of kids to make adult choices when they become adults. And so we had to invoke the notwithstanding clause to ensure that those three bills did not get overturned by an activist court. I remember the notwithstanding clause is a part of our Constitution. It's an important balance between the role of legislated and elected legislatures and the unelected courts and judiciary. And unfortunately, the courts have become very active in recent years in making up new rights and in, I think, overriding the democratically elected officials. And so in this case, we just felt like having some lack of clarity around how this law was going to be instituted in Alberta over the next 4 years wouldn't protect kids. I may add one more thing. It just so happens that this week, both the United States and New Zealand came to the same conclusion that we did, the United Kingdom, Finland, Norway, Sweden, in saying that there just simply isn't enough evidence on the long-term use of puberty blockers to know the impact they're going to have on kids. And we just do not want to see anyone be harmed by making a decision like this prematurely when it has such grave, grave consequences. That was the reasons why we decided to bring through this bill to protect them.
Premier, most people believe history will show you're on the right side of this one. Your minister, Mickey Amery, will be joining us in a few minutes to talk more about it. We'll also be talking to him about another thing I'd like to ask you about, and that is Bill 13, the Regulated Professions Neutrality Act. A lot of people calling this the Jordan Peterson law. So explain what it is and why you needed to do this one.
Well, I can tell you, we've been watching for some time as there's been almost like a speech code that has been enforced on our various professions, certainly in the media, and it's led to a chill in public discussion. And when you end up with a chill in public discussion, you don't make good decisions. You don't have an informed populace. And I think that politicians have a difficult time in navigating through issues when you end up with such polarization and division that is based around lack of information. And so we felt that watching what Jordan Peterson went through, where essentially comments he was making on Twitter, talking about nothing really to do with his profession, were then used and weaponized against him to force him into some kind of mandatory training lest he lose his clinical professional status. We just think that can't stand. We know that we have doctors who have been in the same situation, nurses who have been in the same situation, teachers who have been in the same situation. And we want to make sure that our professional colleges and associations are in their own lane. We think it's their job to make sure that clients are protected, to make sure that there is no evidence of fraud or unethical conduct on behalf of their members. But they're not meant there to be the speech police. They're not meant to impose some kind of ideology or narrative. And so we've drawn a line, and we want to make sure that we maintain robust discussion in the public space.
Well explained. Thank you. Another announcement your government made. I know you've been talking since you were elected about improving the healthcare system and really improving access for Albertans to bring down wait lists. You took a big step with this with your acute care announcement last, I guess it was Friday, with Minister Matt Jones. More on that and the impact it will have.
Well, I can tell you that the future state that we want is we want every single person who needs surgery to get it within a medically recommended period of time. And what we've seen is that our healthcare system has been able to expand surgeries. We're now doing more surgeries than ever before. We thought it would be 310,000 last year; it was more like 318,000, and we're on track to do even more. And a lot of that is being done at charter surgical centers. They started doing about 40,000 when we first got elected back in 2019. They're up to about 65,000 now. And the reason is that they get paid based on the surgeries they provide. So they make more money based on doing more surgeries. Unlike Alberta Health Services, which sadly, even though we've given them $3.5 billion more since 2019, they're only doing the same level of surgeries today as they were back then. So we feel like we need a new model. We need some incentives in place to allow for a clearing of that backlog. So we're going to be funding a special program of 50,000 additional surgeries on top of the ones we're already doing, opening up 1,000 new acute care spaces, two at hospitals in Edmonton, the Grey Nuns and the Misericordia, and then one at a 400-bed tower at South Campus, which has become a very, very popular destination. It's easy to access. It's top of the line because it's one of the newer hospitals, but we're suffering from some space capacity issues. And we'll have more to announce around continuing care very shortly. One of the things we discovered is the best way to increase our capacity at our hospitals is to make sure that those who are needing an alternative level of care are put into an appropriate facility. So there's going to be an announcement very soon on how we're going to build out that system as well. I'm very, very excited to see the kind of improvement in performance we're going to get out of the entire health system.
I'm looking forward to chatting more with Matt Jones about this, Premier. I do want to just ask you, though, your critics always point out, oh, wait a second, now people are going to have to pay for health care. We're privatizing everything. Of course, that's not the case. It's improving the system, but communicate that if you could.
Well, I think people don't understand how that our system, the way it works, is that yes, doctors who are in the publicly funded system have to provide services without charge. Those are doctor services and hospital services. But doctors have the ability to opt out. And what we're seeing in Quebec is that there's now over 800 doctors that have opted out into the private system. We don't want that to happen. So what we're going to be doing, and we released a video on this week as well, is allowing doctors to participate in both systems. We want those to continue offering the services that they currently do right now, but on their evenings or weekends, be able to offer services in the private system also. This is European style healthcare. This is the kind of model that exists in most of the universal European healthcare systems that exist overseas. And we feel that this is going to be the way to deliver the best services. And I can tell you why. I mean, the stories that I hear from surgeons who want more operating room time. Down in my neck of the woods, I talked to a group of surgeons who only get 6 days a month of operating room time. So it's not that we don't have the surgical services available or the surgeon services available. They're just being gatekept. They're just not able to practice to their full range of practice. Another story I heard from a surgeon that they were ahead of time on one of their surgical blocks. They'd done already 4 surgeries. They wanted to do a 5th, and an administrator stepped in and said, "No, you can't do that." And you can just imagine how frustrating that is for a surgeon. So we know that if we can bring in some of the models that we see that work successfully in Europe, fully preserving the right of an individual to make sure that they never have to pay out of pocket for a doctor or surgical services, though some may choose to. But we want to make sure that that universal guarantee is there so that the public system is preserved, but that we have more options for those who would make another choice.
All right. Listen, complexity in the classroom. This is a big one. Things have changed in the classroom. You're wasting no time in addressing this. I know your committees are well underway. You've invited all the key stakeholders around that table to find solutions. What can we tell Albertans about that?
Well, I can tell you that we heard a lot from the front line, especially at the pressure that has happened in the school system over the last 3 years. I mean, one of the things to remember is that when we emerged from COVID in 2022, school boards were talking about reducing spaces. Calgary Board of Education talked about eliminating 14,000 spaces just because we'd had stagnant or declining growth. Little did we know that the federal government was going to throw off all of the restrictions on all of their different programs for newcomers, and 2 million million people per year for the last 3 years have been coming into the country, and a good portion of those have been making their way to Alberta. So we saw about 450,000 people in the last 3 years, and an increase in our school system of about 85,000 net new students. It's why we had to announce an $8.6 billion spending program to build new school spaces. But what also came along with that very complex and diverse newcomer population are a number of students who speak English as a second language or are English language learners, those who might have trauma from coming from war-torn countries, those who might have some kind of special learning need, and it's put a huge amount of pressure on our teachers for complexity and in some cases, sadly, aggression. So those are the things that we heard from teachers. We knew we had to have a working group to be able to solve some of those problems. Our first step is give us the data, tell us how big the classes are, how many of them are outliers from what our commitments are around the class sizes, and how many of them are outliers when it comes to the number of complex kids in a classroom. And then we're going to work on getting dedicated resources to each of those classrooms to make sure that they're manageable for teachers. So the really hard work begins now on being able to address those issues. And I'm looking forward to working with the ATA, who has appointed a member to our committee, along with superintendents and trustees, to be able to get this answer.
All right, I saved the most difficult question for the last. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
We have a new license plate in Alberta. Did your selection win? Would you tell which one did you go with? Because we ended with Moraine Lake. That's the one Albertans chose.
You're gonna laugh. I actually went with the traditional one. I went with the red lettering, but strong and free. I guess I'm just conservative that way.
Yeah.
But I'm very pleased with what Albertans decided. You know, I was just watching the incredible success that our Travel Alberta agency has had in marketing this incredible province to the world. We just won a major award in the UK. We got recognition as one of the top 50 places to visit from the US major tourism magazine as well. And one of the things that they pointed out was Moraine Lake being one of the most beautiful sites to visit if you love nature. And that's what it is that Albertans chose. So I think that people just feel incredible looking at that soaring, beautiful mountain peak and the incredible, peaceful, beautiful green lake. And I think that just makes people realize that you can have it all. You can have a robust, strong, thriving economy, but also enjoy incredible, beautiful nature. And I think that's everything. I think the image really stands for who Albertans are. So I'm very pleased that they chose that one.
Yeah, well said. All good options for sure, Premier. Listen, thank you for this. As always, appreciate the time. I know you've had a busy week. We'll chat with you again next week.
You bet. Thanks, Bruce.
There's our Premier, Daniel Smith, on the Alberta Update. Well, the Minister of Justice has had a lot on his plate this week, and probably for the last few months, frankly. There is Mickey Amory, the Minister, joining us now to chat about some of these things. Good day, sir.
Good day to you, sir.
Hey, I spoke to the Premier about Bill 9, about Bill 13. Obviously, you will be shepherding those through the legislature. I want to chat with you about them. Bill 9, first of all, protecting kids. The notwithstanding clause you're forced to use again, given what's happening in some of our courts. Maybe explain why, how it works, and why it was important to do so.
Yeah, most certainly. You might remember that just about the same time last year, we introduced 3 very important bills that were aimed at protecting our kids, to protecting their childhood, to keeping parents informed about what is happening in the kids' school, and to make sure that women and girls really have a fair and safe place to play sports. Now, this is incredibly important because almost immediately after those bills were passed, we were challenged by a number of organizations, some of which were from outside of the province, who tried to interfere with the decisions made by the Alberta legislature. The importance of these bills cannot be understated. We know that families are impacted deeply by these bills, and we really wanted to make them move forward. Bill 9 will give them the ability to operate as they intend.
This is a tough one because it's such an emotional topic. But the Premier, yourself, your government have chosen the path to protect kids. You're not alone in this. This is being done in other countries, in the United States, I believe, just recently. And the feedback you are getting from parents, from parent groups, etc. is pretty good from what I'm seeing. Obviously, that you have the usual critics, but are you happy with what you're hearing from stakeholders?
Look, I'm very happy with what we're hearing from stakeholders. Let me begin by saying that we did not take this decision lightly at all. It's a very difficult decision, but ultimately we knew that we had to introduce Bill 9 and invoke the notwithstanding clause because we could not afford to have these cases sit in courtrooms for a number of years. We needed finality, we needed certainty for families impacted by these issues, and we wanted to make sure that we would do it in the quickest way possible. The other thing is this: having the legislature debated on the floor and having the public weigh in is the purest form of democracy. Having a court weigh in where there's an unelected judge making decisions about very socially complex issues is probably not the way that we want it to go, especially when it impacted our most vulnerable. Those are our children. And we know that we're putting them in a position where they had to make a decision, sometimes life altering and certainly sometimes irreversible, was something that I didn't want to carry the burden of, and I know that our premier didn't either.
Well, it's the very reason that former Premier Peter Lougheed argued for the notwithstanding clause, so that elected people like yourself and the Premier could make decisions when judges go awry, as we know they can with an ideological lens. But I digress. Hey, let's go to Bill 13. Officially, Minister, officially it is called the. Well, you should tell me.
I'll tell you what,
Officially,
I introduced it today in the House. It's called the Regulated Professionals Neutrality Act.
thank you. I lost my notes. Could you tell? But the point of this bill, I guess, what many people are going to refer to it as, is the Jordan Peterson law. So maybe speak to how it came about and why it is so important.
Well, look, we've all heard about professionals all across the country who are facing sanctions from their regulators for things that they said online, for posts that they may have shared, and for opinions and beliefs that they may have spoken about. And we think that that is not what the role of a regulator needs to be. A regulator needs to make sure that our professionals are competent in what they do and that they're ethical. And that's the primary components. That's what this bill does. It creates an umbrella act for all regulators across the province. And it says this: make sure that your professionals are doing a good job, that they're capable and competent and they're ethical. But we're not going to get in the business of governing what they think and what they believe and things that they believe about geopolitical issues or online posts or whatever it may be. Those are things that go far beyond what a regulator should do. And Bill 13 will stop that from happening.
Well, it did seem pretty nonsensical what Professor Peterson went through. I mean, you're a lawyer. Did that make any sense to you whatsoever?
Well, look, Bruce, we've got some other examples that we can talk about as well. The Jordan Peterson example is one of them, but we also have the example of Leah McInnes, who was a nurse in Saskatchewan who was sanctioned for putting up a Facebook post. There was a nurse in BC, Amy Ham, who was fined $94,000 by her regulator for making comments about something that had nothing to do with her actual job of nursing. We've had countless professionals, doctors, lawyers, and others who have come to us and they have said, we want to contribute to the discussion online. We want to get involved about community and social issues, but we're scared to do so. Here's the interesting part. When we introduced Bill 9, we heard from doctors, and the Premier herself received a number of messages from doctors who said, we want to weigh in on this debate, but we're too afraid of the consequences of doing so. And I think that is the real disservice and the real injustice. When you have professionals who are not able to comment on some of the most important things that we're dealing with in society because of fear of consequence of the regulators, then you know that we have it wrong. And we had to introduce Bill 13 to create that balance and right that wrong.
Well, we want to make sure that doesn't happen in the good province of Alberta, and that's what you're doing. Minister, thank you. As always, appreciate your time.
Well, absolute pleasure, and thank you for having me again.
There is the Minister of Justice in Alberta. That is Mickey Amery joining us on the Alberta Update. Well, there have been a couple of large conferences lately for our municipal leaders. The Rural Municipalities Association, the urban leaders met, and that means that Alberta's Municipal Affairs Minister Dan Williams was busy chatting with the leaders from these communities about things that are important to them, about how they might work with the government. Here is Minister Dan Williams now with more on his mandate letter from the Premier Premier and his priorities for Alberta.
Hello, as your Minister of Municipal Affairs in the province of Alberta, and I'm incredibly proud to receive this mandate letter from Premier Smith, who under her leadership, this government has maintained and continued strong relationships with our municipalities. It's so important that municipalities thrive. So many of our services are rendered through municipal services. Our municipal leaders do an incredibly important job in our province, delivering water and wastewater services, garbage pickup, roads and sidewalks, and everything that we enjoy and love in our communities is delivered through their important work. That's why our partnership is so important. And that's why this Premier in this mandate letter has encouraged us to continue down the path of delivering core services for Albertans, making sure that every single Albertan has the opportunity of home ownership in safe, attractive, and affordable communities, making sure that municipalities keep their tax burden low and that we're looking at innovative ways to move forward to deliver those services and infrastructure for every single Albertan. No matter where you are, we need to make sure municipalities are accountable to the electorate and that those elected officials are making decisions in the best interest of every single Albertan. We're going to work together as the province with every municipality in this province. And where we need to, we're going to course correct to make sure those core services are the focus of everybody, because we have one taxpayer and one Albertan at the end of the day that both municipalities in this province need to serve. I'm so glad to have this mandate letter, and this is a renewal of the important relationship that we have as a province with municipalities, and also a reminder that those services that they provide and we're responsible for as a province ultimately need to be rendered to the Albertan. I can't wait to work with every municipality and make sure that every single Albertan knows that Alberta is the best place to work, play, and live in the entire country.
There is the Minister of Municipal Affairs, that is Dan Williams. And now we welcome in the Minister of Hospital and Surgical Health Services, and that is Matt Jones. Good day, Minister.
Great to join you here, Bruce.
I want to go back to last week, Minister. You made a large and a huge announcement, the Acute Care Action Plan, because it's going to have a big impact for Albertans who are trying to access healthcare. Tell us more about what was announced and how it will impact the healthcare system.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great announcement. First, where this announcement came from, I've toured over 20 hospitals in North, South Alberta, Calgary, and Edmonton, and it's clear to me that we need to build additional hospital capacity. As your viewers are aware, we are in the process of refocusing the health system, and we do intend to make it more efficient. But even with increased efficiency, we're still going to need net new hospital beds. So the acute care announcement, the Acute Care Action Plan includes 1,000 plus new hospital beds. It will include 2 bed towers in the Edmonton area at the Misericordia and Grey Nuns hospitals, and 1 larger tower at the South Health campus in Calgary. And as you know, the Calgary and Edmonton hospitals really serve patients from all around Alberta. So this is a net win for everyone involved.
Several initiatives underway right now by your department, Minister, to support this. You spoke about that at the press conference. If people didn't see it, they can watch the entire press conference on online, of course. But maybe summarize that for us, the other initiatives and how they all come together to improve the system.
Yeah, so we're also facing pressures in our NICUs. So we're putting forward a plan to address our NICU capacity constraints long term. That will, of course, involve building more spaces. We're already expanding some, for example, in Calgary at the Foothills Hospital. But we also need more in places like Fort McMurray and in the Edmonton region. So there's a NICU plan that's part of this. There's also a plan to do 50,000 additional surgeries over the next 3 years. And the reason that's important is that we currently across Alberta have around 80,000 people waiting for surgery. And more concerning, about 33,000 of those are waiting longer than clinically recommended. So the government is putting in incremental funds so that we can increase surgeries in hospitals, in our chartered surgical facilities, so Albertans' wait times are lowered and we get people off the wait list.
Every time this comes up, Minister, you're aware more than most about the critics and, what they'll say about what is happening. But it seems like the dial has shifted to where Albertans are saying, look, more choice is better for Albertans. Everybody still has publicly available health care. Maybe speak to that and the need to clear up some of these waiting lists for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's entirely possible to add flexibility to the system that is prevalent in Europe, for example, or other leading systems, while also investing and building onto our world-class public health system. And that's what I just described. I mean, each of these bed towers would be roughly $1 billion. We've added 1,000 RNs, LPNs, and healthcare aides. Over the last year, we've added over 600 physicians. These are publicly paid. So we continue to build on our world-class public healthcare system, but also open up new flexible ways to access healthcare for Albertans because they expect us to look around the world at what's working and really replicate it here.
You're leading the way, certainly. This is going to be a great step for the system. Minister, thank you, as always, for joining us. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure, anytime.
There is the Minister of Hospital and Surgical Health Services, Matt Jones. Well, as the Premier and I spoke about a few minutes ago here on the program, Albertans have a new license plate. There is the Minister responsible, the Minister of Red Tape, the Minister of Service Alberta and Red Tape Reduction, Dale Nally. Minister, thanks for joining us. We'll get to that in a minute. Can we chat about some other issues first?
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure to be here, Bruce.
Love having you on. Listen, you've been busy cutting red tape again. Let's talk about Bill 10, the Red Tape Reduction Statutes Amendment Act. What is it, and what are you accomplishing with it?
Well, first, so let me just set the table a little bit if you're okay with that. This is our 10th red tape reduction bill. And so we had a goal of 33% red tape reduction. We've actually cut 35% of the regulations in our province. We have eliminated over 220,000 regulatory requirements. We've saved job creators over $3 billion, and we've made life better for all Albertans. And so we're very excited about where we are. And this is kind of a special time to, the number 10 is a special number. We're on the 10th red tape reduction bill. It's exciting. And this is just one more bill that is going to make life better for Albertans. And we'll start with the driver's license. We're going to be making some amendments that are going to allow us to put the healthcare number on the back of the driver's license and the citizenship marker on the front. Now, Albertans have asked us for this. Albertans have told us that their healthcare cards are disintegrating in their wallets. They're taped up to, they've got 2 or 3 pieces that are taped up together. And these healthcare numbers, they're actually being abused. We have over 500,000 more healthcare cards that are being used than we do Albertans. So we know that there's abuse in the system because there's very few security items on there. There's no expiry date, no picture. And so putting it on your driver's license is something that Albertans want us to do, and we're quite excited to do that.
Can you just run that by me one more time? Did you say we have 500,000 more healthcare cards than we do citizens in the province?
That's right. You see the urgency to fixing this. It's just ripe for abuse. So by putting it on the back of the driver's license, we are going to have enhanced security features that is going to make it harder to defraud Alberta Health Services.
Excellent. Well, good for you. I know you need the data until you can figure these things out. You've been great at acquiring it. So, look, anything else to the bill that you want to speak to, or red tape reduction in general?
Yeah, well, we're also putting a citizenship marker on the front, and this is something again that Albertans appreciate because there are many Albertans that will apply for benefits. Let's say could be AISH, could be low income benefits. And these are benefits that are only applicable to permanent residents or residents. Now, for people that are permanent residents, they'll have a PR card and they can show that to qualify for the benefits, no problem. But for citizens, they have to show a birth certificate, Bruce, and many Albertans have lost their birth certificate. And they don't realize this until they go to apply for the benefits, and they don't qualify because they can't prove their citizenship. By putting the citizenship marker on your driver's license, it's going to offer Albertans convenience and simplicity and just make things simpler when they go to apply for benefits. And we've gotten a very good response from this, so we're quite excited.
Look, I know this isn't your lane necessarily. I think I spoke to the Justice Minister about it, but voter fraud is a big issue in many parts of the world. It's something Alberta is not going to let happen here. And I would assume the more you can identify somebody, the better.
Yeah, you have to be a citizen to vote in our elections. So this will just make it easier to confirm citizenship and will protect the security of our electoral process.
All right, let's move to something else. You started a contest with Albertans to pick a new license plate. We have a winner. We've revealed that. I don't think it was one that The premier selected. I spoke with her earlier in the program about that. Might not have been mine either, but hey, it's one that many in the province are proud of. Moraine Lake.
That's right. I'll tell you, both the premier and myself, our favorites didn't get chosen, but that's okay because Albertans voted overwhelmingly. We received over 240,000 votes. And I got to tell you, many Albertans were excited by this. There was a lot of talk around the coffee shop. I would be walking in the grocery store and strangers would come up to me and say, "Oh, I voted for Pump Jack and Cowboy," or "I voted for Moraine Lake." So it just created some excitement. And just the way that we did it, because we started with 8, then we went to 4, and then we went to 2. And so, yeah, the Albertans have chosen Moraine Lake. And to be clear, Bruce, what an iconic image, Moraine Lake. People know this image around the world. It's just such a picturesque location. The turquoise blue waters, and it's situated in the valley of the 10 Peaks. It's just an iconic location. And I think it's a picture that a lot of Albertans are going to be proud of to have on the backs of their cars.
And Minister, I think a lot of Albertans are going to be proud of Strong and Free on that plate as well.
Yes, they are. And this actually, quite frankly, I'm surprised we didn't do this sooner, Bruce. Strong and Free is our provincial motto. It's on our coat of arms. It's in our national anthem. And I like to tell people all the time that it was just a few months ago, the King was in Ottawa reading the throne speech, and he referenced Strong and Free. This is a term that brings a lot of visuals to mind, and it represents Albertans. Albertans are hard-working, entrepreneurial, and nothing exemplifies that more than the Strong and Free motto. So I think that this is something that we can all get behind in Alberta, and it's going to be a great celebration of all things that are Albertan.
Well, like you said, it did generate a buzz amongst Albertans as we worked through the final selection process. Minister, we always enjoy having you on the program. Thanks for taking some time.
Thanks for having me, Bruce.
There's Dale Nally, the Minister of Service Alberta and Red Tape Reduction in the province. And that does it for this episode of the Alberta Update, a first-hand look at what's happening in your province and with your government. I am your host, Bruce McAllister. Thank you for being with us today. A reminder that you can find us on YouTube, on Rumble, on all of the socials, and we'll do this every week. The legislature is sitting, which means we will see you again soon. Thank you again for being with us this week, and look forward to seeing you next time on the Alberta Update.